USB Type-A. Now, first of all, this is the USB connector almost everyone recognizes. USB Type-A is that flat, rectangular connector you've plugged into a computer more times than you can count. And honestly, it's probably the most familiar USB shape ever made. You usually see USB Type-A on desktop and laptop computers, televisions, game consoles, wall chargers, and USB hubs. Now, here's where things get interesting. Even though USB Type-A looks exactly the same on the outside, what happens on the inside can be very different. Some USB Type-A ports support slower data speeds, like 2.0, while others support much faster speeds, like 3.0 or 3.2. So, in other words, the connector shape stayed the same, but the technology behind it kept improving. That's why two identical-looking ports can behave very differently. USB Type-B. Now, moving on from there, let's talk about a connector you don't usually see every day. USB Type-B is bigger, more square-shaped, and honestly a bit awkward-looking compared to modern connectors. You mostly find USB Type-B on devices like printers, scanners, large office machines, and that's actually by design. These devices don't move around much. You plug them in once, place them on a desk, and leave them there. So USB Type-B focuses more on stability than portability. That's also why you almost never see it on phones or small gadgets. Mini USB. Now, if we take a small step back in time, this is where Mini USB comes in. Back then, manufacturers wanted something smaller than USB Type-B, but still strong enough for everyday use. So Mini USB became popular on older digital cameras, music players, and navigation devices. At the time, it felt modern and compact. However, compared to today's standards, it's bulky and not very durable. Most Mini USB connectors only supported 2.0 speeds in basic charging. Eventually, as devices got thinner and more portable, Mini USB slowly disappeared. Micro USB. And right after Mini USB came something most people remember very clearly. Micro USB was everywhere. For years, it was the standard connector for Android smartphones, Bluetooth speakers, power banks, and also for wireless accessories. It was smaller, lighter, and more flexible than Mini USB. But here's the problem. Micro USB only worked in one direction. So if you tried to plug it in the wrong way, and let's be honest, we all did, it could damage the port. On top of that, charging speeds and data transfer were usually limited to 2.0. Because of these limitations, the industry eventually looked for something better. USB Type-C. And this is where everything changed. USB Type-C arrived and fixed almost every problem people had with USB. First of all, it's reversible. No matter which way you plug it in, it just works. You now see USB Type-C on modern smartphones, laptops, tablets, monitors, and also charging adapters. But here's something very important, and this is where many people get confused. USB Type-C describes the shape of the connector, not how powerful it is. One USB Type-C cable might support fast charging, high-speed data transfer, and video outputs. Another USB Type-C cable might look identical, but only support basic charging. So, even though they look the same, they are not always the same. That single USB Type-C connector can carry power, data, and display signals, all at the same time depending on the cable and the device. That's why USB Type-C is becoming the universal standard. So, to sum it all up in the simplest way possible, USB connector types tell you what the plug looks like. They do not automatically tell you how fast it is or what it can do. Once you understand that idea, USB suddenly stops being confusing. So next time you're holding a cable and wondering why it exists, now you know the story behind it. Technology doesn't jump forward all at once. It evolves step by step, and every USB connector type is part of that journey. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.